Wan paced around her bedroom, her thoughts racing faster than her steps. Her hands trembled as she stared down at the test in her hands. 2 glaring lines, feeling like a prison sentence and a miracle all at once. She was only 18. Bakugou was only 18. They're supposed to be focusing on hero training, on graduating from UA and defeating villains, not becoming parents. She sat on the edge of her bed, gripping the blanket for stability as her breath hitched. Okay, you can do this. You just have to tell him. He deserves to know. But what if he freaked out? What if he left? Katsuki wasn't exactly known for being the calmest or most rational person when things didn't go his way. Her phone vibrated on the table beside her. Snapping out of her spiral, it was a text from Katsuki. Oi, we're still meeting up later. I'm starving, the text wrote. She stared at her screen, her heart pounding. She couldn't wait. This wasn't something she could pull a later text. Grabbing her jacket off, she texted back. I need to talk to you now. Come over. The response came almost instantly. What's wrong? Did someone piss you off? I'll kill him. The text came. She couldn't help but laugh at the small response. Despite the situation. Typical Katsuki. No, just please hurry. She texted back. 15 minutes later, Bakugou stood in her room, his crimson eyes narrowed with concern as he leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the picture of confidence. You gonna tell me what's going on, or am I just supposed to guess? His tone was gruff, but she could see the worry behind all his bravo. Ryan hesitated, fiddling with the hem of her hoodie. How was she supposed to say this? Just rip it off like a band-aid? She told herself. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like a bomb, ready to go off. Katsuki's expression froze, his usual scowl softening into something unreadable. He blinked once, then again, his mouth opening as if he was going to say something only to close it again. Say something? Wyatt pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. He finally moved, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. You're sure? He asked. She nodded, tears brimming her eyes. I took 3 tests, all positive. Katsuki let out a slow breath, turning to look out the window. His jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists at his side. Shit, he muttered under his breath. I know, it's not what we planned. Planned? He cut her off, turning back to her. We didn't plan any of this. Why, we're still in school, how the hell are we supposed to raise a kid? His arm stung, but she couldn't help but blame him. She was scared too. I don't know, she snapped, her emotions spilling over. Do you think I wanted this to happen? I'm terrified, Katsuki. Her voice cracked and the tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. Katsuki's eyes widened and his anger deflated. He stepped closer, awkwardly placing his hand on her shoulder. Shit, don't cry, he muttered, his voice softened now. I didn't mean to yell. Mayan sniffled, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Then Katsuki let out a long sigh. We'll figure it out, he said, his tone firm. We're not going to let this ruin us. Mayan looked back at him, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and appreciation. You mean that? Yeah, he said, his voice steady. I'm not running away from this, from you. We'll deal with it. A smile broke through her tears, and for the first time she felt like she could finally breathe since saying those 2 little lines. But the relief was short-lived, however, when Katsuki brought up the next hurdle. We need to tell my parents. Ren's stop dropped. Listen, Bakugou's parents were intense, to say the least. Mitsuki's fiery personality wasn't exactly a mirror of her son's, and Wyatt wasn't sure how she'd react to the kind of news. You sure we have to do that? She asked hesitantly. Katsuki gave her a look. What, you want to wait till you're showing? Hell no, they'll find out sooner than later. Better if it comes from us. Anne couldn't argue with that logic as much as she wanted to. When did we tell them? Tonight, Katsuki said without hesitation. Tonight? Yeah. Rip off that damn band-aid. You said it yourself. You groaned into your hands. This is gonna be a disaster. Katsuki smirked, his usual confidence creeping back into his expression. Nah, my old hag will probably yell a bit, but she'll get over it. And my dad, he's chill. He'll deal. However, his nonchalant attitude was both reassuring and somehow nerve-wracking. That evening, Len found herself sitting on the Bakugou's couch. Her hand clenched in her lap, Katsuki sat beside her, her arm draped protectively over her shoulders. Across from them, Mitsuki and Masuru sat, both looking concerned and a little bit curious. All right, what's all this about? Mitsuki demanded, her sharp eyes darting between them. You two didn't burn down the school or something, did you? Masuru just chuckled nervously. Mitsuki, don't jump to conclusions. His soft voice spoke. Katsuki rolled his eyes. It's not about school. He took a big deep breath, glancing at Wen before turning back to his parents. Wen's pregnant. The room went silent. Mitsuki's jaw dropped while Masaru's eyes widened in shock. You're what? Mitsuki shouted, loud enough to make her voice make Wen flinch. Masaru looked around like he was about to say something, but Mitsuki beat him to it. Are you two out of your damn minds? You're barely adults. Do you have any idea how hard it is to raise a kid? Mitsuki, calm down, Masaru said, grabbing his wife's arm. Don't tell me to calm down, she stabbed, though her voice softened slightly. Katsuki, how the hell are you going to handle this? Katsuki's expression hardened, his protective instincts kicking in. We'll handle it together. Mitsuki stared at him, her anger slowly giving way to something else. Concern. She let out a sigh, pinching the bridge of her nose. Well, you better figure it out fast, she said, her tone still sharp, because this isn't just about you anymore. Wyan nodded, her heart pounding. She tried to muster up the courage to speak. We know it won't be easy, but we're committed to making it work. Masaru gave her a kind of smile, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to his wife. If you two need help, we'll be there for you. Before Wan could respond, Mitsuki cut in. Yeah, but don't expect me to babysit all the time. You're raising this kid yourself. Katsuki groaned. We didn't ask you to, old hag. Mitsuki smirked. Good. At least you're taking some responsibility. The tension in the room began to ease, and Ryan felt like a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could handle this. But then Mitsuki's sharp eyes narrowed. By the way, have you told your parents, Ryan? Ryan's stomach twisted, but she realized they had only cleared one hurdle. The hardest part still ahead. The tension from the previous conversation lingered as Katsuki and Ryan stepped outside the Bakugou household. The cool evening air hit her cheeks, a stark contrast to the warmth of Katsuki's hand, which held hers tightly. They walked down the quiet street in silence for a moment before Katsuki broke it. You okay? He asked, his tone gruff but tinged with concern. Ryan nodded, her stomach churned. I think so. Your mom didn't kill me, so that's a win. Katsuki smirked, his usual cockiness attitude creeping back up. Told her she'd yell. That's just her way. But she didn't disown us, so that's a win too. Ryan chuckled softly, leaning into him as they walked. Yeah, now we just have to survive my parents. He gave her hand a squeeze. We'll deal with that one when the time comes. One explosion at a time. His words, though sarcastic, carried a strange comfort. Katsuki had a way of making even the most daunting of situations feel manageable, as if his sheer determination could bulldoze through any obstacle. When they reached Ryan's house, she hesitated on the porch, turning to face him. Do you want to stay over tonight? He raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitched upwards. Thought you'd never ask. Inside, the tension eased as they settled into Ryan's room. Katsuki flopped on his bed like he owned it, one arm tucking behind his head, the other reaching to pull her down beside him. She couldn't help but laugh as she landed awkwardly on the chest. Comfy? She teased, poking his side. He smirked, grabbing her hand to stop the poking. Damn right. You got the best spot in the house, so I'm claiming it. Wen rolled her eyes, but she didn't argue, instead nestling closer. His hand moved to her back, tracing lazy circles that sent shivers down her spine. Despite his brash exterior, Katsuki had a gentleness to him that he rarely showed to anyone else. You know, he murmured, his voice softened now. You're pretty damn brave for telling me the way you did. She looked up at him in surprise. I was terrified. Yeah, but you still did it, he said, his crimson eyes beating hers. You didn't try hide it or handle it on your own. That takes guts. Her heart swelled at his words. He hadn't really been that sweet recently. She hadn't expected him to. You're braver than you think, too, she said, her fingers brushing over his chest. You could have run the other way, but you didn't. He snorted. What kind of guy do you think I am? The kind who yells first and thinks later? She teased, earning a mock glare. Watch it, dumbass. He grumbled, but his smirk betrayed his annoyance. Wan laughed. The sun was light and genuine for the first time that day. She felt like things might actually be okay. As the night went on, the two of them stayed tangled together, their conversations drifting from serious to lighthearted banter. Katsuki's hand rested on her stomach. His touch was warm and steady. You think it's going to be a boy or a girl? He asked suddenly, his tone unusually curious. Ryan blinked, startled by the question. I don't know. Does it matter? Nah, he said, a rare softness in his voice. Just wondering. Either way, they're still going to be a badass. She smiled, her fingers playing with his. With you as their dad, they have no choice. She stroked his ego effortlessly. Damn right, he said, grinning. The image of Katsuki as a father was both heartwarming and hilarious. She could picture him teaching the kids to stand up for themselves, his tough love balanced with a moment of surprising tenderness. Do you think you'll be the strict parent? She asked, her voice teasing. Hell yeah, he said without hesitation. You'll probably be a softie, spoiling them and letting them get away with shit. Hey, she protested, laughing. I can be strict too. I'm sure you can, he said, smirking. But we both know I'm the one who'll lay down the law. Wan rolled her eyes, but she couldn't help but laugh. Fine, Mr. Rule Enforcer. Just don't scare him too much. Katsuki's expression softened, his hand moving to cup her cheek. I'd never hurt him, he said quietly. Or you. Her breath hitched out of the intensity of his eyes. Moments like these reminded her of why she'd fallen so madly in love with him in the first place. Beneath all the bluster and bravo was just someone who really cared deeply, even if he had a shitty way of showing it. I know, she whispered, leaning back into his touch. For a moment, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them. His thumb brushed against her cheek, eyes locked onto hers. You're mine, he said in a voice that was low and possessive. No matter what. Caught it? Her heart raced, but she nodded. Yeah, I got it. He leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both fierce and tender. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer as the kiss deepened. The heat between them was electric, a reminder of the passion that had brought them to this very moment in the first place. As their breath mingled, Katsuki's hands roamed her back, his touch sending shivers down her spine as she melted into him, losing herself in the intensity of the embrace. But as much as she wanted to let the moment consume her, a small voice in the back of her mind reminded her that there's a tiny life growing inside her. Katsuki, she murmured, shaky against his lips. He pulled back slightly. What's wrong? Nothing, she said quickly. We just have to be careful. Now? He took a moment to understand, but when he did, he nodded, his expression serious. Yeah, of course. He rested a gentle kiss to her forehead, his arms tightening around her. Doesn't mean I still can't hold you like this. he murmured, warm and reassuring. Yeah, I wouldn't want it any other way. They stayed like that in each other's arms for a while, the weight of the world feeling like a little bit lighter. No matter what challenges they'd face ahead, they knew that they could do it together. And they also knew this baby was going to have some sick-ass parents.